The views and opinions expressed on the following program are not necessarily those of Choice 105.3 or its advertisers.
Your views, your opinion, your voice. Tune in to Choice Community Radio 105.3 FM on Saturdays at 1 p.m. for the talk show that tackles the major issues on target. Join former members of the Nevis Island Administration and St. Kitts Nevis Federal Government as they discuss and debate today's issues with the listening audience. Also expect special guests, panelists, and friends. Participate by calling phone lines 869-469-5300 or overseas phone line 203-983-8903. Listen live on www.sknclt.com. Be sure to tune in to Choice Community Radio 105.3 FM each and every Saturday at 1 p.m. It's On Target with the Honorable Dwight Cozier, the Honorable E. Roberto Hector, and the Honorable Patrice Nisbet. Where the press is free and every man is able to read, all is safe. That is the motto of the national newspaper of the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis, the SKN Leeward Times. Be sure to purchase our latest issue at our many distributors, including TDC City Drugstore, Slacks Liquor, Chapter 1 Bookstore, Dongfang Supermarket, Superfood Supermarket, Island Tires and Hardware, Rams Supermarket, Hosford's Value Mart, Cost Me Less, Best Buy Gingerland, X-Petrol, E&F Enterprise, Mansa's Last Stop, and A.V. Jones & Sons. Stay up to date with what's going on in the Federation, the wider Caribbean, and the whole world. Buy yourself a copy of the SKN Leeward Times newspaper. For more information, be sure to call 1-869-469-1049 or log on to our website www.sknclt.com. Get in touch with your favorite presenter or go live on Choice Community Radio 105.3 FM by calling local line 1-869-469-5300. Calling from overseas? No problem. Call 1-203-983-8903. It's your SKN Choice Times and we want to hear from you.
Power rules the world today. Power corrupts, they say. And absolute power corrupts you. Absolutely. It can change a man who has a heart of gold, make him cruel, wicked, self-centered and cold. Many men in this land, many organizations fought for freedom and justice throughout the land. When they have power and authority, they don't give a damn about nobody. Prostituting the island to all and sundry, they peddling my people's right, exploiting, oppressing, less freedom, more suffering. I wonder how we survive. Think it over, my friend. Think it over again. Think it over, don't vex with me, shorty. Think it over, I'm singing as I see. Food we can't even buy, murder the price too high. Malnutrition killing the children while we the adults starving. Yet the price is rising without control. Young man begging bread by the side of the road. And Chamber of Commerce in this land, I tell you, they don't give one damn. The more we try to economize, the more cost of living rise. When they have power and authority, they don't give a damn about nobody. They prostituting the island, milking the land dry. They making my people starve, exploiting, oppressing, less freedom, more suffering. This thing just can't go on. Think it over, my as a sea. Work we can even find.
Hello and welcome to this Saturday, July 8th edition of On Target. I'm your host, Dwight Cozier, and with me today is the Honorable E. Roberto Hector, the Honorable Patrice D.H. Nisbet, and Dr. Kelvin Daly, our resident panelist and expert. We want to apologize for the late start, which, as many of you, our dear and ardent listeners, would already understand, is from, again, the failure of what I call the criminal enterprise that passes for government in Nevis today, in keeping us in electricity, in the light. They have failed to keep us in the light, and I believe, I can't recall the verse of the Bible, but there is a verse in the Bible that says, men love darkness rather than light because their deeds are evil. And so this is where we are in Nevis on this 8th day of July 2017. And so with that said, I want to again wish you a very pleasant afternoon and thank you for joining On Target. We are about 1 hour late because of the electricity failure, and we have been indeed plagued with these over the past weeks and months, and the situation seems to be getting worse, but we will continue to endeavor to shine the bright light of scrutiny on the issues here in Nevis and in the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis as they develop over the week. And we are here on the On Target program each Saturday afternoon to place the requisite analysis to these issues and to develop debate as we go into the ensuing week. We have with us also this afternoon the Observer, St. Kitts Nevis Observer newspaper, and we shall be commenting on the various articles and issues within this paper as needs be this afternoon, and we shall now look at the front page. The front page reads, IMF says St. Kitts Nevis strongest growth and fiscal performance in ECCU. That's on page 6. And on page 15, the Chinese national to invest in a $107 million condo resort in St. Thomas. And then there is a smaller headline which reads, this will be different from the Candy Resort. And so that is in fact an indication that perhaps the Candy Resort is being thrown under the bus by the Observer and whosoever else the Observer represents, perhaps because of the sordid details there and the involvement of the Minister of Tourism who got involved in that debacle over there in a real estate scandal that has resulted in the Honorable E. Roberto Hector asking for his resignation. And in fact, the entire country, I believe, now believes that this man, Mark Brantley, should resign. His conduct is repulsive, and he needs to rein in that conduct and do the right thing and resign. And I personally want to call on him this afternoon to resign. The other newspaper, the national newspaper of the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis, SKN Leeward's Times, has on its headline, again, bringing the specter of crime into sharp focus, 7 months, 17 homicides, few solved. 7 months, 17 homicides, few solved. And that story is on page 5, and it is right next to the picture of the latest homicide victim in the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis, a young man that is said to be originally from Ramsbury, Nevis. His name is Kishon Edwards, and he was brutally slain just this past week on, in fact, Tuesday, July 4th, in Otley's village. And he was only 26 years old. And so that is what is happening in the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis today, amongst the weak economy, the fact that people are out of jobs, seeking employment, businesses are seeking revenue, and murder. Very stark picture for the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis, but that is the case. We also have on page 4 of the national newspaper of the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis, the SKNCLT Times, a second Chinese fugitive wanted in China arrives in St. Kitts. Second Chinese fugitive wanted in China arrives in St. Kitts. And we have heard about the Renbo matter, where that Chinese national is alleged to have embezzled some $100 million from the Chinese government, Chinese state-owned corporations, and have been sheltered by the government of St. Kitts and Nevis. And now this is a second national from China who arrives in St. Kitts and Nevis, who is said to be a fugitive. That story is on page 4 of the national newspaper of the Federation. And also, we have again, in the crime sector, on page 12, police discovered 26 illegal firearm. So, the 26th illegal firearm. And that is, it's been touted as some type of a victory by the police, that they are, in fact, recovering or discovering or retrieving these firearms off the street of St. Kitts and Nevis. But it is, in my view, if a victory, very Pyrrhic victory, because they, in the first place, have no call on the street of the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis, and it is, in my view, an indictment to our government that the state of firearms has fallen to this low an ebb that we have to have our police out retrieving these firearms off our street, rather than doing the detection, getting the detection of these murders and getting crime under control in the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis. And so those are some of the issues we shall be debating this afternoon. And without any further ado, I want to call on our Dr. Daly to begin the debate this afternoon with his introductory remarks. Good afternoon, Dr. Daly.
Good afternoon, Mr. Cozier, and welcome back in the hot seat.
Thank you.
Pulling double duty is never easy when you're trying to commentate and moderate at the same time. So I certainly welcome you back to the hot seat. And good afternoon to my colleagues, E. Roberto Hector and my good friend Patrice Nesbitt, and to our engineer this afternoon. And of course, I wish good afternoon to all those who are listening and sharing, and I guess sharing with us again on this bright Saturday afternoon. We were a bit concerned that we might not get a start because, of course, the power situation is always the first and paramount concern in these days of darkness. And so we are certainly glad to give you perhaps an abbreviated version of the show today, because of the hour we have lost waiting for power to come back on. Mr. Cozier, there are some areas that I wish to touch on, and you mentioned the area of crime. And of course, I would like to have a few cents on that part of it. And of course, the another issue is the new program that has been launched by the Department or Ministry of Agriculture with control of monkeys is even more ridiculous than the first one. So I think persons in the farming community in general like to hear my dissection of that program. And I would also like to give a more lengthy update on the issue with aggregate being exported out of Nevis. That started in February. And finally, I have not lost the bet yet, but it's just to give an idea how long it has been. And finally, if time permits, I would like to talk a little bit about a story that was posted on Facebook concerning the white elephants that were spotted up at Prospect Estate. And the white elephants have to do, of course, with the uncompleted extensions of the Beth Klingit and the abattoir. And so those are issues that I would like to. And of course, there are other white elephants, but they haven't even started the construction of those yet, so I can't call them white elephants as yet. They are dead elephants. In the Charlestown, the Newcastle police station. And I do not know as yet what is to occur at Government Road where they knocked down those buildings. There's no plan posted, just grass and bush growing. So those are the areas of concern for me, Mr. Cozier.
Thank you very much, Dr. Daly. And indeed, we are going to have to abbreviate the program this afternoon because of the time lost, but we shall nonetheless try to get all of these issues in, and we therefore would want to move forward at a very even clip this afternoon. And so I shall, without any further ado, call on the Honorable E. Roberto Hector, who pulls no punches. He pulls no punches. He likes to speak his mind, and he is going to, no doubt, give us an update on the House proceedings this week, as well as other things that has elapsed over the week.
Good afternoon, Mr. Cozier, and let me say good afternoon and welcome back. Last week it was quite a challenge to fill your shoes, but we were able to bring to the public what the true issues are and the state of affairs in this country. I say good afternoon to all, and as I often say, it's always a pleasure for me to add my voice to the nation's debate. Wherever you are in the diaspora, I know you look forward to hear from us and for us to bring you ball-to-ball commentary in terms of what is happening on the island. The only two issues I would want to raise in this short time, Mr. Cozier, would be one, what happened this week in terms of the, should I call it the shortest ever House of Assembly meeting that we've had in Charlestown. Secondly, I would want to look at the electricity situation in this country and NEVLEC. We were held up here this afternoon for quite a long time. I'm wondering now whether or not the electricity situation is deliberate. I am told that when I began speaking in the House on Wednesday, it was immediately the plug was pulled. This afternoon I realized we have lost 1 hour of our show, and for some time I've been looking at the Thursday night occurrence with Tell Me, when we also just lose electricity to give the time. And I know people are outside there listening. The other matter, which is not an issue, but I think as I give my introduction, a lot has been said and I've had a number of calls. There was an unfortunate exchange this week, evening, between myself and a constituent, and nothing that I'm happy about. But what is disturbing is the way that it has become a political football for the other side, orchestrating and managing things to the point where they're trying to bring to the public a sort of image. I think my constituents know me well, and they know that I've always tried my very best to make sure that peace progress and prosperity transcends this line. We are not going to accept the distraction. There is an issue that has been mounting for a long time. And this afternoon, my challenge is to Mark Brantley to answer the allegation of his involvement in the Candy Resort. And even to make it even more, I realize that he's getting a lash this afternoon on the front page of the Observer, where another hotel is coming, but they are telling you it won't be like the Candy Resort. What does that mean? Mark Brantley would not be interfering again? His wife? His law firm? Is that what they're trying to tell us? That they're giving us an assurance that this corporate thief would not want to meddle and daddle in this situation and then have a lawyer flown in who is an affiliate to try to rise to glory and to delay, as Justice Ramdani has said. I would not have it. And so, making the situation a political football, which was just unfortunate, I am not going to buy into it, and I'm not going to be silenced by that. And all the orchestration that he would have done behind the scenes, trying to get it to be a matter that goes to the police station and everything, it shows how devious these guys are. Not only that, his surrogate, Mervyn Hanley, I don't want to say much about him and make him, because I understand his financial pains. And I know he would have to make stories his way of life. That's how he lives. And so, the sad situation is that the way these guys have taken to the airwaves, disturbs me quite bad. But I shall remain focused in serving my good people and to bring to them what the true situation is in the state of affairs in this economy. That is all I would say by way of introduction, Mr. Kozia.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hector. And as I said, very direct, to the point, and I believe that is the way the constituents wants Mr. Hector, because, they have chosen him. He has represented them. He lives amongst them. And he is a person who has no fear in the constituency which he represents. And so, thank you very much again, Mr. Hector. We shall be moving right along. And I want to now, again, greet the Honorable Patrice Nisbet, and ask for his words of introduction.
Thank you, Mr. Kozia. And let me say good afternoon to the general public and all those who were WhatsApping me and texting me, wondering what had happened to On Target. But we are always on target. We are never off target. Those who in charge of electricity, they seem to want to take off On Target. But we will always be here on a Saturday to have the first or the last word on the varying issues which plague and affect the country, St. Kitts and Nevis, and more specifically to the people of Nevis. And as you normally say, Mr. Kozia, we will shine the bright light of scrutiny. Sunshine is the greatest disinfectant. And we will ensure that the people, through our analyses, get a very simple picture, but a potent picture as to what is transpiring in the nation. And we have seen results of On Target, because we came here Saturday after Saturday and we were jamming about the lack of a parliament. And there was one, an aborted and abbreviated version this week in Charlestown. But we understand why it was aborted. Because they knew that the time or the bell was tolling on them. And the Nevis Reformation Party was going to come off its long run. And so, being ill-prepared as they were, they chose. Imagine they advertised that they were going to have a full sitting where bills were going to be read a first time, a second time, and a third time and pass into law. But when you get to the parliament, you are being advised that there's an amendment to the order paper where there is going to be no public business. No public business. Imagine that. When you call a parliament for if there's not going to be public business, in other words, you're wasting the time and you're wasting taxpayers' money in this country. And it shows the level or the lack thereof of seriousness of these people whom we call our leaders. Because I'm sure those on the opposition side, they were well prepared, ready to go. Because they've been practicing for weeks right here on target to deal with those issues. And Mr. Kozia, I think during this week we have had some birthday celebrants. I think Mr. Joseph Parry, Alistair Yarwood, they celebrated their birthday, I think it was yesterday. And so for the panelists here, on behalf of the panelists here on target, one would want to wish the two good gentlemen, we would hope that the two good gentlemen would have a very happy, they had a happy birthday and they had much celebrations. So, Kozia, as the time is pressing on us, I would want to deal just with two issues this afternoon. And if you look at page 11 of the St. Kitts Nevis Observer, you would realize that the Nevis Island administration is on a land acquisition spree. They are going to acquire roughly 14 acres of land in St. James. They are going to take some land from a private property owner. And I don't know what they're going to do with it. I don't know who is going to benefit. I don't know which law firm is involved in this acquisition exercise, because there has to be compensation. And if you are going to acquire beachfront property, it means there has to be a valuation. And so we would want to ask this afternoon, what is the purpose behind? Because there must be a public purpose. What is the purpose behind this land acquisition? I am hearing they say it's for recreation. Recreation. Do you need 13 acres of land for recreation? What is it going to build? A Mondo track in St. James? What's it? It's pool facilities? Well, a little later we will need to examine what the purpose of this acquisition, who is going to benefit from this acquisition, and what it is going to cost the taxpayers of this country. Because I remember when we did acquisition in this country, you all remember what CCM was saying? They said we can't take poor people land. We must not take any land. They had people calling from Tortola, and people were crying on the radio. And from the United States, I remember a fella calling about his animals. What's his name was? Gary? Calling on the radio. And he was saying how the government was taking advantage of him. He was advised to call. And some people wrote letters. So we need to examine this acquisition. We need to put this acquisition under the microscope this afternoon. Because of my second issue, the IMF has issued its Article 4 assessment of the Nevis economy. And I read the assessment with great amazement. Not that I am surprised. But you know what? The IMF has given this government a fail grade in its performance in managing the public finances of Nevis. You know what the IMF has said? The NIA has large arrears to bilateral creditors. So, if your loan is in arrears, what that mean? And so a little later we are going to look at what the IMF say, because the IMF also said that there is no fiscal discipline in Nevis. And it is true, because they brought a supplementary appropriation to say that they are now want authority for spending $11.4 million. And so the IMF is correct. There's no fiscal discipline in Nevis. And so we need to examine what the IMF said about this present Nevis Island administration in its Article 4 assessment of the economy. And so when we get back, we need to have some discussions on that, Mr. Koza. And those are my two issues this afternoon.
Thank you very much, Mr. Nisbet. We shall take a short break, after which we shall come back and delve into the issues.
Get in touch with your favorite presenter or go live on Choice Community Radio 105.3 FM by calling local line 1-869-469-5300. Calling from overseas? No problem. Call 1-203-983-8903. It's your SKN Choice Times and we want to hear from you. Feeling thirsty? Need to beat the heat? Then come on into Nevis Spring Water at Cedar Trees and get just what you need. We sell small, medium, and large bottled water, cold or room temperature. We also refill your large bottles. We sell empty bottles of all sizes. Call us at 469-5011 to place your orders or for your delivery services. Nevis Spring Water, the only thirst quencher. Where the press is free and every man is able to read, all is safe. That is the motto of the national newspaper of the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis, the SKN Leeward Times. Be sure to purchase our latest issue at our many distributors, including TDC City Drugstore, Slacks Liquor, Chapter 1 Bookstore, Dongfang Supermarket, Superfood Supermarket, Island Tires and Hardware, Rams Supermarket, Hosford's Value Mart, Cost Me Less, Best Buy Gingerland, X-Petrol, E&F Enterprise, Mansa's Last Stop, and A.V. Jones and Sons. Stay up to date with what's going on in the Federation, the wider Caribbean, and the whole world. Buy yourself a copy of the SKN Leeward Times newspaper. For more information, be sure to call 1-869-469-1049 or log on to our website www.sknclt.com.
Power rules the world today. Power corrupts, they say. And absolute power corrupts you. Absolutely. It can change a man who has a heart of gold, make him cruel, wicked, self-centered and cold. Many men in this land, many organizations fought for freedom and justice throughout the land. When they have power and authority, they don't give a damn about nobody. Prostituting the island to all and sundry, they peddling my people's right, exploiting, oppressing, less freedom, more suffering. I wonder how we survive. Think it over, my friend. Think it over again. Think it over, don't vex with me, shorty. Think it over, I'm singing as I sing. Food we can't even buy, murder the price too high. Malnutrition killing the children while we the adults starving. Yet the price is rising without control. Young man begging bread by the side of the road. And Chamber of Commerce in this land, I tell you, they don't give one damn. The more we try to economize, the more cost of living rise. When they have power and authority, they don't give a damn about nobody. They prostituting the island, milking the land dry. They making my people starve, exploiting, oppressing, less freedom, more suffering. This thing just can't go on. Think it over, my friend. Think it over, carefully again. Think it over, don't vex with me, shorty. think it over, I'm singing as I sing.
Thank you very much, and welcome back to On Target. We have a full slate of issues here this afternoon. We are operating on limited time, and so we shall get right into the issues. Dr. Daly, you have raised the issue of crime, the monkey problem, the aggregate exports by the Minister of Aggregate in Nevis. I believe that is the Honorable Alexis Jeffers. I'm not sure if that is detailed in his portfolio, but he seems, by his conduct, he seems to have elicited that nomenclature, that title to his name. And you also raised the issues of the white elephants at Prospect Estate. So I'm going to allow you to elaborate.
Good afternoon once again, and thank you, Mr. Cozier. Mr. Cozier, you mentioned in your opening about the continuing crime situation on St. Kitts and Nevis, and we recorded our 17th murder, the unfortunate death in Atleast a few days ago, and it struck me. A post came through, a copy of a post came through, a matter of fact, a screenshot came through to my phone a few days, and it showed a gentleman who is the Major General Saunders. He used to be in charge of the Jamaica Defense Force. He has been identified as the advisor to our Prime Minister, the Honorable Harris. And the post continued to show that the commission, and they had a commission inquiry in Jamaica, and the commission accused this gentleman of dereliction of duty and incompetence. Dereliction of duty and incompetence. This is the advisor to our Prime Minister on the matters of crime in the Federation. So the question must be asked, and asked clearly. When we go about hiring persons into our service, isn't it customary to do a due diligence, a background check on these people to make sure what you're getting, what you're paying for is what you're getting, that you're getting value for money? Now, if Jamaica doesn't want this gentleman and they were about to boot him out, why are we so quick to pick him up? Aren't there anybody else? Isn't there anybody else in this whole world that we could have gotten that could offer better advice and have a good reputation for doing work? If the story is indeed true that this Major General Saunders, is being basically set aside by the Jamaica Defense Force, why are we so quick to pick him up? What is the connection? How did he get referred to us here on St. Kitts and Nevis when the crime situation in Jamaica is worse than ours? It is worse than ours. So if he wasn't doing anything in Jamaica, what he gonna do here? I mean, this is not rocket science. If in Jamaica you have a crime situation that is out of control, worse than in St. Kitts and Nevis, you have a commission of inquiry that asked was basically threw this guy under the bus and saying he was being accused of incompetence, and I shudder. I don't know why we can't get something right in this country for a change. Now, Mr. Cozier, continuing in the same vein, I'm always mesmerized by the utterances of our Prime Minister when it comes to his ideas on crime, on solving crime, and preventing crime. Because his latest position is that he's going to grant 70 acres of land on St. Kitts. And he says team unity. I remember our CCM brethren, ministers, are part of team unity. They are the linchpin of team unity. Because without them, team unity doesn't exist. The government under Timothy Harris is saying they're going to allocate 70 acres of farmland on St. Kitts. 2 former prisoners and 2 gangbangers who they are trying to rescue. Now, I do not understand that, because the reason being, there's no mention of any program, such program, on Nevis. If Nevis is a part of Team Unity, then shouldn't there be a sister program on Nevis? And the gangbangers on Nevis? And the ex-prisoners on Nevis? None. So who is representing us in this whole debate? Who is representing us? We have a Minister of Nevis Affairs who goes to Bastille 5 days a week. And here you have the Prime Minister talking about a national program to rescue gangbangers and to assist young men who are coming out of prison to make sure they're gainfully employed. And I'm disturbed as a practitioner of agriculture that they're looking at agriculture down their noses, because they single out agriculture to do the rehab on these young men. Aren't there any other ministries that could have taken some and make it effective? They're looking down the nose at agriculture. If you don't have nothing to do, do agriculture. Let me tell you something, Mr. Harris. Agriculture is not a garbage pan. It's not a dump heap. We went to school the same way. We were trained the same way. This is high science. And the reason you have so much failures in agriculture in this country is because people doesn't understand this is science. You have to invest. These are not the times of my mother's time 40, 60, 70 years ago, where we didn't have animals walking around the place. We had people respecting people's properties. You didn't have the monkey problems. Right? Our rainfall patterns were more predictable. The science has changed. The requirements have changed. You simply cannot give a guy an acre of land and say, go farm that, and he makes it successful. It doesn't work like that anymore. It does not work like that anymore. I said to you, Mr. Harris, if you are serious about making this 70-acre program a success, you really need to start putting the money, the resources, into a complete plan, comprehensive program to make it sustainable. What happens when a man who is planting a crop of melons, for example, on an acre of land, and at the penultimate week, he's raided by monkeys or people, and he loses an entire crop? That's 3.5 to 4 months out of his life gone. What is he to do then? What recourse does he have? Does he have insurance? Is he going to be compensated for any loss? No. So you really have to be strategic in your thinking. How best to rehabilitate these young men if using agriculture as a model? You simply cannot throw them out there in the wild and say, listen, here's an acre of land or half acre or 2 acres, whatever it is. Make it work. It doesn't work like that. If you're going to be sustainable, you need to have a reliable source of water. Where's the water going to come from? If you are successful as a farmer and you have a bumper crop, where are you going to offload this bumper crop? Because we know Nevis and St. Kitts is a small market, and the things you produce are very perishable. You don't have a long shelf life. And therefore you have to be cognizant of all of the constraints that are holding back farming in this country. It needs to be a coordinated, comprehensive effort if you're going to be sustainable and if you're going to be serious. So don't be fooling people talking about you're going to allocate 70 acres and that's the end of the story. That is not the end of the story. That is the beginning of the story. So don't fool anybody with your nonsense. You really, these things make me upset as a practitioner of agriculture when they can come and simply say, oh, go do agriculture as if it's just nothing to do. Just chop a seed in the ground and it grows and that's the end of it. Nonsense. This is why we are where we are. Yeah. You know, it's really ridiculous. Right? So in my view, again, Mr. Kozia, this kind of utterances from our Prime Minister, it speaks to a certain level of contempt for agriculture in this country. And that's why we can't get anywhere. Right? There's a new program on Nevis, Mr. Kozia, And I heard about it on, somebody sent me a screenshot of a post on Mark Brantley's Facebook page. And the same gentleman they brought here from South Africa, the monkey feeder, the banquet farmer, he has now gone to another level of ridiculousness. Just when you thought there was no other level can be more ridiculous than that, he has now started a new program called the 1,000 Trees for Nevis program. And what this program is, you as a businessman, Mr. Cozier, you say, I'm going to sponsor 100 trees, 100 fruit trees into this project. And of course, you're given commendations for your contribution. And Mark Brantley is supporting this new program. Accolades, high accolades to the gentleman. And the program simply says, in addition to the banquet, we are going to plant 1,000 fruit trees scattered up in the highlands for the monkeys to feed on, rather than having them come down into the lowlands. So you're going to plant mangoes and bananas and everything else. Adam and Eve, Garden of Eden. You know, and I said to a colleague of mine who was at the Ministry of Agriculture just yesterday, and I said, listen, you are making this man look like you guys at agriculture don't know what you're doing. And the gentleman said to me, Daily, I've spoken, I've preached that this doesn't make any sense, but nobody listening. We don't have in this country, except for humans, which is very sparse and uncoordinated, no program, no natural predation on monkeys. So the population, of course, would expand and expand. Without a natural predator on monkeys, and now you have an introduction of unlimited food, the monkey population will explode. Jesus, Jiminy Cricket, you cannot get any further analysis than that. Food is the limiting factor for to control monkey population on Nevis. Sometimes it's very rough on them, like in the summertime, you know, out of season crops. They struggle. They struggle. They get disease coming in on them. You eliminate some of the population through the disease and natural selection processes. But here comes this man from South Africa.
The monkeys in Ramsbury would go back up.
Who gonna tell you the monkeys in Ramsbury and Stony Grove gonna go back up Hamilton because you plant some fruit trees up there? Let me tell you something about monkey behavior. Monkeys are territorial. Once they set up a range, they will defend it to the death. So the monkeys you see in Ramsbury will always be in Ramsbury. If you see monkeys in Hamilton, they're always going to be in Hamilton. They don't go outside of their range, their home territory, because it's going to be warfare. You understand? And this is what people don't understand. You're not going to find certain monkeys packing up the bags and going up to Hamilton to eat mangoes.
Like a tsunami.
They're going to pack the suitcase and say, listen, fellas, let's go south. Let's go up the hills. You know what I mean? So I do not know why our ministers
They don't know no better.
are taking this nonsense and shoving it down people's throats and allowing these guys to run roughshod over us here on Nevis with this nonsense. You're going to make the matter worse, Mr. Cozier. You're going to make the matter worse. So you, in addition to the banquet now, where you go to the hotels and collect the old food, the monkeys, all they're going to do is get fat and get more babies. And the babies are going to live longer because you don't have the stress of not having food. That's all that's going to happen. So look out for explosion in population. And like I said before, monkeys are living longer and longer and longer. And so when we don't the pressure on them about starvation, then he is, we are going to create a worse situation here on Nevis. And I am wondering a new nickname for the minister. I call him the cockatoo, but perhaps Alexis Monkey Banquet Jeffers is a more apt description. Honorable, sorry. My mistake. The Honorable Alexis Monkey Banquet Jeffers is perhaps the best moniker I can use to describe what is happening in this country. Now, Monkey Bum. I know a guy named Monkey Bum when I was a kid. I wonder if the same guy. So Monkey Bum has now become Monkey Banquet. Okay. Now, Mr. Kozia, the same unremarkable minister, I can't use the same Monkey Banquet descriptor for him anymore. For this part of the story, I'm going to have to call him the Honorable Alexis Crushstone Jeffers. Because he came to us in February 28th, 2017, on a high in front of a whole mountain of stone up there in the River Valley. And this is what he said. Jeffers, this is the stone crusher Jeffers now. He says, it's the first order we have gotten since we procured the crusher, the screen, and also the front end loader and excavator back in November 2016 through loans from Social Security. What he was referring to, the story was, the context was, Nevis, for the first time, would export aggregate in the amount of 3,000 tons via barge to St. Martin. And what he promised and what he crowed about was that this was only the first of several shipments to come for the year. He predicted that he will ship an equal amount every 2 months. Mr. Kozia, the first shipment left Nevis on February 28th. The second shipment was to leave on April 28th. The third was to leave on, where's my note here? June 28th. Not a single other shipment has left this country. And I predicted it right in the studio here. Based on the analysis we put on the mats, it could not be done. And if it was done, he'd be wanton and arrogant in his stupidness. Right? Because we showed clearly that he was making a loss, a minimum loss of $10,000. And when a friend of mine heard the story, he called me and said, boy, you're talking nonsense. It can't be $10,000. The least he will lose with the deal is $40,000. On every shipment. I was being very conservative in my math to give him the benefit of the doubt. But it's clearly that another shipment could not be made possible because it was a losing arrangement. And you must consider, Mr. Kozia, up until this date, has he come to Nevis people and tell them what they got from the deal? Did they break down and say, we got this from it? This is money we made from it? They have not, because they can't. Unequivocally, they can't. They can't. A little bird picked me in my ear a couple of days ago and told me that the company that they shipped the aggregate to in St. Martin, right, they also recognize it's a one-time deal. Because the material that we sent them are basically road fill. They cannot be used in construction. They're not hard enough. A matter of fact, Mr. Hector, the whole couple of days now, from yesterday and today, yesterday and the day before, a barge came in here with crushed stone. A barge came into Nevis with crushed stone for public works.
I see they have thrown some at the feet of Dr. Simeon Daniel.
Yeah, the stone came in here because what's being mined right now in the Nevis quarry operated by NL is too soft. It don't have the compression strength, and therefore they have to bring in the harder stone from Montserrat or Guadeloupe. And so that deal to St. Martin was a one-time deal which paid for the front-end loader and the excavator that was on that barge that came up with the shipment of the crusher and the screener. There was no payment made for those two pieces, only for the crusher and the screener. They paid $1.2 million for them, and the others, there's no documentation of any money being transferred to pay for those equipment. So what paid for them is the fill that went down to St. Martin. I guarantee you that. And if Mr. Jeffers thinks I'm lying, come and prove, show us the figures, show us the invoices, and we will see for sure. But not only that, the company St. Martin is continually buying crushed aggregate from Anguilla, from Montserrat and Guadeloupe. And they're saying no matter what the crushed material costs in Nevis, they can get it cheaper in Guadeloupe and Montserrat. So if you can get it cheaper and it's better quality, why on God's name would you think that transfer occurred? Why? It's a payoff. It's the only logical thing. It was a payoff. And it went to a company that had closed down because the St. Martin government stopped them from mining anymore. And so all the mining equipment was there sitting gathering dust, rusting away. This is not new equipment. This is old stuff. And we paid a handsome price for them. And as part of the deal, they threw in the front-end loader and the excavator for a load of road fill. This is the facts. These are the facts.
Who owns the equipment? The government?
The government doesn't own. The government owns the screener and the crusher. The others, they say they're owned by a colleague of the minister from St. James. But when you talk to people, they're saying this guy don't have two shoes to kick a stone with. How are you gonna buy them equipment?
Walking around with a cellular phone.
He walking around selling the phone and kicking stone. He did not have it. So who backed him to purchase those equipment? The equipment was not purchased. It was a barter. It was an exchange. No money transferred. No money changed hands. I'll give you that. You give me equipment. That's how it went. That's why Mr. Jeffers cannot come to Nevis people and tell them how much anything costs, because he can't. Mr. Kozia, my final thing for right now. There was a post made by myself and Carlisle Powell on his Facebook page entitled White Elephants. And that post went almost viral. Almost 3,000 hits on it. Caused great consternation in the mind of Minister Jeffers. We're back to the same monkey banquet Jeffers now. Because he made a big song and dance 3 years ago when he launched, when he had the groundbreaking for the veterinary extension. And a year later when he did the launch for the abattoir extension. Oh, we got a call?
I believe there's a caller on the line. Good afternoon, caller.
Hello, good afternoon, guys.
Good afternoon, welcome to On Target. Yes. Doing well? Good.
Hello?
We're doing well, thank you. Welcome.
Okay, well, my topic today is concerning to do with this man they said they're bringing from Jamaica. This reject policeman, or wherever he's supposed to be, I don't know. That's not the point. I want to make it clear.
Dr. Daly referenced him in his...
Right.
Yes.
I want to make it clear I don't have nothing against foreigners. Let me make this absolutely clear. I see some people going to want to make this spin and this spin. I don't care. The situation that it is, let me start with Mark Brantley first. When Timothy was on the platform, ranting and raging, Dr. Drew and Gilbert come from Cuba to take over our country. But Dr. Drew and Gilbert is not petition. I mean, this man has said some of the things that Timothy needs to be arrested for bringing this country in dispute, including Mark Brantley, because Mark Brantley sit there on the platform when Timothy said, Lawyer Anthony, bang water, come to sink it. Well, Mark Brantley forget that he wife not from here. Mark Brantley forget that Vance Army wife ain't from here. He went on to say that C.G. Walwyn came here with his foreign accent. And you're talking about intelligent people listening to Timothy talk these foolishness. C.G. Walwyn is from in the village. So what foreign accent he coming here with? So how can I accept that man from Jamaica, that reject? How can I accept him? What accent he has? He has a Jamaican accent. So I do not think we as the people of St. Kitts and Nevis should let this man come here and get no easy time. However, Timothy they want to take it a matter for them. But he will not have no easy time for me. Because when I listen to the rhetoric and the disrespect, what was lashed out on C.G. Walwyn, Timothy went on to say, Mark Brantley, he was responsible for Nevis and the problem with the crime. That's how nasty these guys was playing it. And now today, I supposed to accept a man come from Jamaica to run our police force and our army? When Timothy say, C.G. Walwyn come here with his foreign accent. Well, Timothy Harrison, Mark Brantley, if C.G. cannot work in where he born, that man should not allow to work in St. Kitts. So whatever it takes, demonstrate, we got to do whatever we got to do. He needs to get out of my country. I hope he do not come. Because I will not accept him with open arms. Every day he going to have a hard time. Because he also going to bang water, come to St. Kitts. I mean, how Timothy could be so foolish. How this man could say these things about this country and get away with it? St. Kitts is like Haiti. That was Timothy's words. He went on to say you're most likely to get killed in St. Kitts and Nevis than in Jamaica. Mark Brantley went all over the world. Let the guns blaze. What is Mark saying today? The Douglas was supposed to come home. The crime is out of control. Well, I just hear release that we are the top 5 in the world in murder. That is not good. Do you think they're going to go all over the world and call every radio station to portray that? And back to the Canada. That's why I keep maintaining that Timothy and Mark Brantley and all of them need to be arrested for bringing this country in disrepute. Because they're the one who instigate the Canada whole affair. They open it up for Canada, they give King Canada information. They're just selling passports like black pudding and they're going up and down the place. Every chance Mark gets in every radio station around the world in the Caribbean. Look what happened today. Look what happened to Antigua. Who are you blaming? These guys need to get serious. And this guy from Jamaica, please, do not bring him in the country, Timothy, because I will not stand idle by and let him have an easy time. It's not right. Because you, Timothy, say, C.G. Walwyn came here with the foreign accent. But Timothy, C.G. Walwyn is from here. It's time people stand up to you, dictator, Timothy Harris, and Lion Mark Brantley and Vance Army. You have a good day, guys.
Thank you very much, caller. Dr. Daly, you were going to...
Okay, well, I appreciate the call. And I think that's why I started with the lead story. If you want to get persons advising, get competent people, not throwaways and throwbacks. So I was telling you about the white elephant story up at Prospect. Because when we wrote the piece, people actually, when they started reading the introduction, they really thought they were white elephants on Nevis. But white elephant is just a name used to describe buildings or projects that started and can't finish or underutilized. So we wrote this piece and it got quite a big reception on the Facebook followers. And the piece came out last week, Friday. And by Monday of the following week, this monkey banquet minister was through and through prospect at the vet clinic and by the abattoir, trying to figure out what to do to finish these projects he started years ago. And lo and behold, Thursday, I was up by the vet clinic to buy some medicines for my dogs. And a back was behind the cleaning down all the bush, that pictures we showed in the first story, cleaning down the area. Clean, spick and span. And what is amazing to me, though, is that I wonder if this gentleman, is he so shallow in his thinking to believe that by cleaning down the bush, you have accomplished the task of getting these buildings ready for occupation. 2 years, 3 years, 3 years in case of the vet, and going on 2 years now in terms of the abattoir. Why is it this gentleman cannot finish anything? What is so difficult? If you're bragging to Nevis people that you got $113 million, and you have not gone, because in the order paper for Parliament on Wednesday, there wasn't a single item in there, whether on the recurrent or on the capital, that showed agriculture overspent. Not a dime. And I applaud that. But I would believe, given the importance of those two institutions, those two divisions, that I would have been forgiving if you said I had to spend $500,000 to complete the jobs at agriculture. I would have said, man, okay, I know how it goes. But not a dime. Not a dime from the SIDF, not a dime from the NIA to finish those projects. And so the good folks up at agriculture, the hard-working staff at the vet clinic, continue to have their lunches stored in the same fridge that you store vaccines and other animal medicines. When the fridge works. The same hard-working staff have to eat lunch on the porch, weather permitting. And if you go up there on a day, you're going to see dogs and cats on the same porch in cages. Is this people force? Is this how you run a ministry? No. He needs to go and fix those problems and fix them quickly. Given the short period today, Mr. Cozy, I'll stay there for now.
Well, thank you very much, Dr. Daly. You know, sometime in the past, we heard that maxim by the CCM party that people matter more. I suppose those people that you just described there at the vet, they're not amongst those people who matter more.
I'm in favor of
I always say that they never said who the people were that matter more. Now we know that it's Mark Brantley and Vance Amory. And because they're the ones benefiting from the largesse of this country. Without any further ado, I would want to call the Honorable E. Roberto Hector to get into the meat of his issues here this afternoon. Mr. Hector, you spoke to the NIA meeting, the situation at Nevlec, and you commented on that NIA meeting as the shortest ever in the history of Nevis, and that is saying a lot. I happen to have read the legislative history of Nevis, and it seems that we have a record. So we want to hear your elaboration on these points.
Well, I scored it at 15 minutes. The Honorable Carlisle Powell said 13. But my 2 minutes extra was because I went through the door. And by the time I come back in, I was trying to get in contact with Mr. Constitution, the Honorable Patrice Nisbet, because I know we had a discussion before about these bills that were before Parliament and the way they were amended. And our discussion was that any minister or any minister who is serving in the capacity as the leader of government business in a house or parliament and does amendment to bills, I am talking about 150 amendments to one of the bills. Another one, it was 65, I can recall, and another was 75. And so our people today, in looking at these legislation, would have to have the original legislation passed in 1984, as in the case of our NBC legislation, and also have the amendments, the 65 amendments, so you have to be reading them dually. And they were passed in May of 2015. I know what it was. But these guys, they travel so often, they actually forgot what they had before the house in Nevis. And so I don't intend to speak on those bills. I spoke on them already. And I'm going to write to Miss Williams and ask for the tape. Because we want to make sure that Nevisians understand the fraud that lies underneath the surface and skin and brain of a man like Mark Brantley. Coming back to us. So, when they realize what was happening and they are not admitting into this, they're saying that they are going to adjourn the house. They left the house without giving us any inclination as to when we are going to have the sitting. In fact, people on the road are able to say to me that what you say the guy new name is? Honorable Alexis Monkey Banquet Jeffers would have said to them in 2 weeks. That's not how you operate as the leader of government business. You must have a record. You must know what you're doing. And so, for that 13 or 15 minutes, I decided I must show my frustration on when it comes to speaking on the adjournment. And so I started, but I'm told by my dad, as soon as I said Mark Brantley was incompetent, the electricity went. So there was no voice in town for you to hear. And I'm wondering now if that electricity problem is not contrived. That's the best word to use. This is the problem. And I have questions to ask, yes. And that is why I told you I'm going to add Nevlec. But maybe I should make my comment now. Because the chairman of Nevlec is the Speaker of the House. I raised that with Mr. Amri in our meeting. Cannot be right, Mr. Amri. I eventually met with Mr. Amri. I didn't update you. I must update the nation. I would have spoken about it on another forum, but not on Target. The first thing happened in which Mr. Amri indicated to me, and it was, I must tell you, a cordial meeting. Great meeting. For the first time I've gone to the meeting, the office of the Premier. It's a great spread, gentlemen. A very large office. And I wondered for a moment, I wonder if they're paying the rent to Social Security. Because they've had a history of not paying the rent. But they are large offices, and I know how the building came. So I wouldn't want to go into the history of that. You have security down the corridor, and you have people in the office. And I must say, I was happy that he offered for us to have a private meeting, not with a meeting having a secretary recording. He said, Mr. Hector, what would you prefer? And I say, before God and man, my hands are clean. I'm not wearing my tape. We can sit and we can have a discussion, man to man as politics. And we had a great one. I did tell the nation that I saw the concern in his eyes. Because you know what was the purpose of our meeting, as I would have indicated. And he indicated to me, in a nutshell, that in order for him to respond to my letter, he would need to make sure that he has the requisite advice, to the legal advice in order to move, which in a way I have concerns about, but acceptably fair. And I was saying one of the questions that I raised with the Premier was the fact of the conflict that we have, Mr. President being Mr. Chairman, and the difficulty. Again, it seems to me like the decision would have been more a cabinet decision to appoint him. Because I cannot tell you that I got fully from the Premier what his true feelings were in terms of this appointment. So what I told the Premier is that, Mr. Premier, I'm going to test what I'm going to tell you when I get to the House for our next sitting. I'm going to test it because I'm going to show you the difficult position that the President of the House is placed in when you are discussing anything about neglect. So the people of Nevis would see the litmus test whenever we go back to Parliament, because I am preparing a number of questions that are to be answered. And you're going to see some of those questions might not be answered by the minister who is responsible, the Honorable Alexis Monkey Banquet Jeffers, for Nevlec. But these are questions that very well might be answered by the chairman of Nevlec.
Mr. Hector, I believe we have a call. Good afternoon, caller. Welcome to Untarget.
Let me get something clear. What you're saying, the Speaker of the House is what?
Also the chairman of the power authorities in Nevis.
He should arrest. He should go into the police station and tell him he come to be arrested. Because he in Parliament and electricity going, he's the chairman. He need to go in this police station and say, look, I come to get arrested for being a stupid fool. I mean, what kind of foolishness these people doing to people, boy? I mean, you tell me that could make any common sense. The other day, this same Alexis Jeff was on the radio, cutting up people in the process where he and come on gone. He won't program, they won't program on their radio and come on gone. I mean, I'm not them to really come try to tell people. But people really come to tell these, what do you really think people be? People went to school on Sunday. Sunday was Sunday school, guys. Mark Bradley, people went Sunday school. And when people were going to school, the teacher wasn't walking out because that's a while gone. Only I went to all the schools. And I is the brightest. I mean, you is the chairman for the electricity. Parliament is going on and come on gone. But down here, when he come up, they were blaming Douglas for everything. Douglas wasn't the chairman. He was in charge of the power station. You see how things they work out in mysterious ways? God don't sleep in a big man. These people think that when they were doing the foolishness, it was okay. But you must accept the set of dunceness are going on in this country today. You're the chairman, you're the speaker, and you're in the house and come on gone. You should need to walk in the police station Nevis right now as I speak and tell the police he come to be arrested because this is foolishness he's doing. Arrest you oneself. Tell the police to arrest me. I mean, these guys need to just step out the place, man. They ain't serious. They ain't understand how to run a country. They know what is going on. They do not know nothing what is going on. All Mark can do is be boasting. That's all Mark is great at, being boasting. Everything was Douglas and Douglas. And Mark Bradley, come on, man. Listen to all this foolishness. How can in 2007 you're telling me electricity is going off in Nevis still? And if you say you think it's about to say, yeah, Douglas, mess it up. Because I know they like to say everything in Douglas. You might have to mess up your one in Nevis. My God.
Thank you very much, caller.
Have a good day.
Thank you. Thank you. Indeed, that caller is saying that the President of the House and the Chairman of Nevlec should turn himself in, not because he's a criminal. I don't think he insinuates that, but because he feels that his crime, if that could be called that, is incompetence and stupidity. So that is indeed some very strong words. But I do believe, Mr. Hector, what you're saying is that the Speaker and indeed the Cabinet, if they appointed him, has put themselves in that position.
Well, Mr. Kozia, I have another spin on that too. If the chairman, of course, is the president of the House, and if he's going to the length of shutting off power to the House, it tells you the fear that they had when Hector was running in from the Bath Hotel Inn to deliver. And so rather than face the bouncers, they said, listen, the easiest way, shut off the power.
The caller made a very important point. And like I say, it would be tested in the House. And I knowing Mr. Powell, I know he too would put it to a test at the right time. Now, of course, I wanted to go even further with the sitting of Parliament because the parliamentary sitting, in my mind, highlighted the incompetence of the leader of government business. we also had an appropriation. They were seeking approval of some $11 million that they spent last year. And the interesting thing is to look at the categories of spending. The first time when it was sent to us, it did not include this breakdown. But I'm saying to you, we had the breakdown now, so we had the ability to discuss it. We have a caller?
We have a caller. Yes, good afternoon, caller.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon to everyone there. Very lively discussion going on. I'm enjoying it. But I have a question. So you're saying that the Speaker of the House is getting tupeted?
Getting tupeted.
Yes. He would have been the president of the House would be getting a salary.
He's getting tupeted?
Yes, he's getting a salary as the president of the House and a salary as the chairman of NEVLEC.
Interesting.
And,
Wow.
and the embarrassing situation is that during the time that the House is being conducted, and he's presiding over the House, electricity went. And so that is the embarrassing situation. He is the person, as chairman of NEVLEC, ultimately responsible for power generation.
You're not left for me? Wow. Sorry for poor people. Continue, guys. Doing a good job.
All right. Thank you very much for calling, caller. Thank you. Yes. Mr. Hector?
Yes, so I was saying we got the breakdown. And, well, in response to what the caller is saying there, I mean, we have to look at it because one of the issues I had, the president of the House would have only met since the last budget. November. So let us work out his salary over those past 7 months, and you're asking yourself, what is it he worked for? It's a larger package. And gentlemen, could you imagine me raising this in the House as a concern for the taxpayers of Nevis to the president of the House, who is also the chairman of NEVLEC? I'm going to get a Perkins. I'm going to get a Perkins. And that is the very unfortunate position that we find ourselves in Nevis. And that is why I'm saying, I want to believe, I can't remember, we can check the estimates. It's somewhere between $3,000 to $5,000 a month, I believe. For 7 months, you realize that about $35,000 he got to do no work whatsoever, and that is what it translates to. Well, if we collect the stipend from NEVLEC now, and you add in that, I'm not sure what it was. Somebody who sit on the board, I understand they have increased everything since we left. So if we take the bare minimum of $2,500, give me some calculation as to what we are talking about. What electricity going off is costing us. So about a $17,500 for chairmanship plus a $35,000, and divide that by 1, because only one sitting we had at the House, and it's making $53,000 to sit there last week and say to me, I do not want anything contentious on the adjournment. That's what he got paid to do.
One sentence.
And to also open with a prayer, because when he's there, you realize we don't have a pastor now. He's the one who does the prayer. So I guess the prayer is costing us now something like $17,000. You guys say for one setting. I mean, that is what is happening in Nevis at this time.
Hector, you must understand. I raised the issue before that here you are in tax month. This is June is tax month. We just finished tax month. Right? Where we are scrambling to get money into the treasury. And as fast as the money is coming into the treasury for taxes, your taxes and my taxes, we are spending it on this frivolous nonsense. We are paying a man twice Once as chairman of the board of NEVLEC and one as president of the House. This is a nonsense. This is not monopoly money.
Dr. Daly. You know, we have an abbreviated version. So I think those two issues, I would have crystallized them in terms of what my contribution would be this afternoon. And I'll have the opportunity at the next parliamentary sitting to raise these issues. Mr. Collier, that's all I would say for now, and I'll allow the Honorable Patrice Nisbet to give his discussion points some beef as we go forward.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Hector. And without any further ado, we call on the Honorable Patrice Nisbet to give us his elaboration on the matters raised.
Thank you, Mr. Cozier. And we know the phenomena of two salaries is something that is very prevalent here on the island of Nevis. It seems like it is like an infectious disease or like the fresh cold. You know, it is all around, even among those who are legally trained. It seems like it's something that is a part of the psyche here in Nevis. It is practiced in the highest levels of government. And so people normally take a cue from their leaders. And so it comes down the chain of events. And I realized that the editorial of the Leeward Times, the national newspaper of St. Kitts and Nevis, has editorialized this phenomena with regards to this chairman of NEVLEC and being the president of the Nevis House of Assembly. It says Farrell Smitten, while he happily collects his 2 salaries for his 2 jobs, plus his retirement income, so maybe he's getting 3.
Social Security.
Yeah, he's on a monthly basis. And at the same time, we're experiencing frequent blackouts here on the island of the Nevis. Imagine in his winter of his years, he's at the top of his game. He's playing cover drives, coming off the wicket. Easy, this is easy like Sunday morning. A good day to watch Stuart Williams at the park. What is happening in relation to this gentleman? And you remember we had a caller some time ago who spoke about the bad mind of this individual? The bad mind of Farrell Smith. You remember that? I remember that caller vividly. But now today, he is being rewarded handsomely by the taxpayers of Nevis. He's collecting a salary or stipend as the chairman of NEVLEC. He's collecting a salary as the president of the Nevis Island Assembly. And also, he is, according to the Leeward Times, he's collecting on a monthly basis his retirement income, whatever that amounts to. So I believe he's saying, he's laughing all the way to the bank and he's saying, these are the best years of my life. He's like Vance Emery, saying, these are the best years of my life. I am doing nothing and I'm collecting 3 salaries. And the people of Nevis are left in bewilderment. Because some people in Nevis, the only thing they can do is to buy food. And you have to buy food. Because if you don't buy food, you can't live. You're going to die. And now we are hearing the food that poor people buy is going to be taxed again. Sugary foods that the poorest of us buy, they are now contemplating putting a tax on that food. And so, my dear people, we are in trouble because we don't know exactly how this tax is going to be implemented. Is it going to be the amount of sugar in the food? Or the amount of flour? Or the other way around? But Mr. Cozier, I wanted to speak briefly this afternoon about this land acquisition matter. Because, you know, when I was a legal advisor to the Nevis Island administration, we did a number of land acquisition which we thought were in the public interest and to promote our people for development in certain areas where we did the acquisition. For example, we acquired lands here in Government Road. And those lands, we knew at the time, I believe maybe it was a pumping line. Some pipes used to run through that land. And we wanted to acquire that land to build a community center for the people of Charlestown. And Ewa Belter Hector, in his wisdom, thought that that was the best location for a community center for the people of Charlestown. And we came under tremendous criticism from the CCM. The CCM was saying to the people of this country, this government is a wicked government, taking away poor people's land. Article was written in the newspaper. People called from Tatola, crying on national radio and from the US, saying how wicked the Nevis Reformation Party was. And we told them that this was for a public purpose. And we would have given you lands or give you adequate compensation as the law requires. As a matter of fact, the land that we were proposing is better than where that land is in Government Road. And eventually the people came around. But the damage was already done. And today, the people of Charlestown, they don't have a community center. And there are community centers all around Nevis. Only in Charlestown. If you want to keep a public activity in Charlestown, you have to go Red Cross or Credit Union and pay money. But what we were saying, it was high time that the people and the constituents of Charlestown were given access to a community center. And a community center is about people empowerment. That's what it's about. You can't keep a town hall meeting in Charlestown without paying monies to a private enterprise. But that is not what the government of the Nevis Reformation Party represent. And so today, look what we have. They criticize us for acquiring lands. And now today you're seeing in the newspaper, the St. Kitts Nevis Observer newspaper, that the government is acquiring nearly 14 acres of land in St. James for recreation. The Mundo track is on 14 acres of land? You don't need 14 acres of land for recreation. What are we going to do with 14 acres? What type of recreation is going to happen on this land? I really don't know. What type? It has to be they're going to build a major facility. Something like the Sir Vivian Richards Stadium. It has to be a stadium they are going to build. And this is beachfront. So, is it an Olympic-sized swimming pool? On 14 acres of land? But there has to be several. Or maybe it has to be that we are going to bid to host some major international event. Has to be the Olympics. That is why we need 14 acres of land to do so. And let us break it down for a moment, because they bought nearly an acre of land recently. Beachfront property down at Cliff Dollars or down at Jones Bay, Wally Beach. And I am told that they paid 1.6 million US dollars for it. And the equivalent of that is about 4.3 million. So if you pay 4.3 million for an acre, let's say 4 then. Let us 4. For easy maths. If you pay $4 million for an acre at Jones Bay, and you are now buying 14 acres, you know, compulsory acquiring 14 acres in St. James, how much is the government going to pay? Because if you multiply 14 by 3, how much does it get? 46. $42 million just for the land. Because there are other costs. There are other legal costs. There are valuations involved in this. And so you are going to stick the taxpayers' Nevis with a bill of about $46 million for this land. And if there can't be agreement on the price, it means that you have to set up a board of assessment. Which means that you have to bring in now 3 people to sit, to assess and come up with the proper, fair and adequate compensation for these lands. And so Nevis people, watch out. Watch out. Because you must recall, Ocean Reef was in the process of saying that they were going to do a tourist development on this land. And so instead of a tourist development, you're now going to have recreation. And we know what a tourist development will do for the area. It will bring jobs, employment, income for the people. But instead, we have been advised by our government that they are going to exercise that draconian power of compulsory acquisition in acquiring these 14 acres of land. Private people? But what is that? What is that? What message is that going to send to Ocean Edge? A foreign investor? The message that is going to be sent to them is that this government is not serious about foreign investment in the country. Instead, this government is interested in acquiring the property. Because we know this case has reached as far as the Privy Council. It is still a matter that is in the court. But it's obvious. This compulsory acquisition is going to basically settle this matter. Effectively, that is what it's going to mean. That this government now is going to pay a whole heap of money to have this matter resolved. And so, Seth Foster, I believe, wherever he is, he's smiling. Because the gods of the Nevis Island administration are smiling on him. Because he is going to come out of this a very wealthy man. Because the government of Nevis has to compensate him. And there are rules with regards to compensation in the constitution and in the ordinance also. The rules are there and the rules are clear. And it has to be followed. And so the people of Nevis, once again, by this reckless and irresponsible government, will have to pay large sums of money in compensation for this acquisition. And you know where you have to lay the blame? Because this comes out of the Minister of Agriculture. Yes, this comes from the Ministry of Agriculture. Anything to do with lands and land acquisition has to come from the Honorable Alexis Monkey Banquet Jeffers. This is where this comes from. And we know how it goes about doing projects. We know how it goes about doing these things. These are not well thought out. Somebody must tell him, listen, you need to acquire that land. And so he has gone to acquire the land. Maybe you just needed about 2 acres of land for recreation. If that much. But instead, he's acquiring 14 acres of land, which the people of Nevis has to pay for. We have to pay for that land. And so they need to come to the people of Nevis and say to us what type of recreation will be done and how the compensation will in fact be paid. Because my last issue that I
caller just called me to say you forget to calculate social security in Mr. Farrell's package.
Mr. Koza, my last issue this afternoon is quite disturbing. And we keep coming here on this program week after week doing our analysis of the Nevis economy. I don't even know if the economy exists. I mean, a couple of days ago, I felt so good. I was there on the street where Dr. Daly's ice cream place is, and about 4 tourists came up to me and they asked me, where is the ice cream place? So I pointed them out to where the ice cream place is, And I smiled because I realized he was going to get some sales that day. They went across there. But, Mr. Kozia, we know that things in the Nevis economy are quite difficult. Almost impossible to operate. As a matter of fact, I heard an ad quite recently about Simon's Contempo Fashions. After 25 years of business, they're having a final clearance sale. It tells you what is happening in the economy. And we keep saying here that the only creative and imaginative solutions to stimulate some activity in the economy is by calling a big bingo. And we realize Culturama itself has now caught on to that. The government of the day has caught on to the bingo virus. And so on the 14th, you're going to have a $10,000 bingo to open the new Culturama or the renovated Culturama village. I understand that there's also a VIP area in this area. And so I myself will have to go there and see what is happening. But, Mr. Kozia, we keep asking about who is really responsible for managing the public finances in Nevis? And what sort of job is being done in managing those resources? And so, because we can't get any information from the local authorities, and because they have refused to set up the office of the leader of the opposition, and they have refused to appoint a public accounts committee, we have to look to other sources to find out what is happening in our economy here in Nevis. I know Mr. Hector wrote a letter to Mr. Colin Dorr asking some questions. But I know those questions are going to go on the order paper the next time the parliament sits in Nevis, because he's going to put those questions in the name of a minister. And the minister will have to answer those questions, so he's better be prepared to bring the facts. Because I saw one of the questions, we want to know how much money has been paid to lawyers for those cases that they keep losing in relation to ANBAS. We need to know. Because they have gone to court at least 5 times and lost 4 times. 4 times they lost. And you know, each time you have to fly in lawyers and they have to eat and they have to sleep. We say they have to go to music festival also. So tickets have to be provided. I know, and they lost on appeal. I called it that in also. So we need to have answers to these questions. And so I went to look at the IMF. Because the IMF has just released its Article 4 assessment of the Nevis economy. And it's there on the IMF website for all and sundry to see. And I realized part of the propaganda of the St. Kitts Nevis Observer newspaper, they put on their front page St. Kitts and Nevis' strongest growth and fiscal performance in ECCU. But we know what's the growth rate projected for St. Kitts and Nevis. It's at about 2.7%. And the question that you have to ask, when you put this in proper context, where did we come from? We came from a growth rate of about 7%. And today, the St. Kitts Nevis Observer newspaper is boasting about a growth rate of 2.7%, or about 3% thereabout. Less than 3%. And so people have to be reminded as to where we were and where we have come to. We have fallen. There's been no growth. As a matter of fact, there's been a major contraction in terms of growth here in St. Kitts and Nevis. And so when I went to the IMF, the first thing the IMF said about Nevis is that Nevis has a debt and cash management problem. Mr. Kozia, anybody who has a debt and cash management problem, it only means one thing. They're speaking coded language it means that your debts are more than your cash. And so you have a problem paying your bills. And once you have a problem paying your bills, it means that you are what? Bankrupt. You need a bailout. And so, look what the IMF also said. The IMF also said that the NIA has a lot of arrears with bilateral creditors. They are in arrears. It means that they are not paying their creditors. Exactly. That's what I'm going to get at that. They are not paying their loans to those whom they owe. And so they are in arrears. The IMF also went on further to say that public fiscal management in Nevis is weak. It's weak. Oh, of course, this is a budget that is not realistic. It is not funded. Not even the total recurrent expenditure is funded, because the revenues that they collect in terms cannot meet the total recurrent expenditure. And you have the IMF report when they say that the budget process in Nevis is not realistic. They told you that already. And so come in 2017, they also went on further to say, and this is surprising to me, that the NIA has not up to yet completed its debt restructuring exercise. You remember all they said about the land for debt? And how they rejected? And how they have alternative solutions? They have been in the government for now 4.5 years. And up to now, they have not completed the debt restructuring exercise. And so the IMF was at pains to conclude that there's a lack of fiscal discipline in Nevis. But we all knew this. There must be a lack of fiscal discipline when you end up with a supplementary appropriation of 11.4 million, and where you have one minister, he overspent almost the same amount of money that was budgeted for him to spend in that year. It shows the lack of discipline. And so as a result of the lack of discipline, you know what has happened? We have developed large deficits. And once you develop a deficit, it means that that deficit has to be financed. And exactly, the only way you're going to finance that, well, only two ways. You're either going to increase taxes or you're going to increase borrowings. And so they are going to borrow more money at a very high interest rate. And we have limited access to credit. And so I want to ask this afternoon, with all these matters identified by the IMF, where is the $1.13 million that we got? Where is it? Because if we had gotten $113 million pumped into the Nevis economy, we would not have all these problems. We would have been able to deal with our cash. We are able to pay our debts, and we'll have a strong fiscal management here on the island of Nevis with a little surplus also. And so this Nevis Island administration is badly managed, is poorly managed. And whom do you lay blame at? You have to lay blame at the feet of Vance Emery. And so what are we going to do in Nevis? If the Washington organization called the IMF is saying that Nevis finances are poorly managed, well, what will the people of Nevis do? This is a credible institution, worldwide recognition. They came to Charleston and Bastia. They spoke to Vance. They spoke to Harris. And after their deliberations, they have concluded that Nevis' fiscal situation is in a terrible and dire state. And so, Nevis people, what are you going to do? Are you not going to rescue Nevis from the hands of these people? These people are poorly managing your resources. They are going to cost you more money. They now have acquired lands that they're going to pay about $42 million for. They now have large arrears with their creditors. They can't pay their debt. They're not managing the situation properly. And we see what is happening in terms of the spillover in the local economy, where businesses are constantly closing. And Dr. Daly will tell you Not even on a Friday afternoon, which is the busiest day. He can sell 5 ice creams. And so, my dear people of Nevis, when the Nevis Reformation Party was in government, we didn't have these problems. We saw the worst financial and economic crisis that the world has ever seen. And we were able to weather that storm. And the IMF never wrote reports like this. In the era where they say that there's increased cooperation between St. Kitts and Nevis, they have access to the SIDF, they have budgetary support, all these things, all these instruments they have available to them. But yet still, you have a situation where the Nevis Island Administration have severe financial constraints. And as we always say, they have abandoned us. They have gone to Bastia. They have gone to Bastia. And so nobody is here. This is running on autopilot. And as a result of running on autopilot, you have poor management of the financial situation here on the island of Nevis. And so Mr. Hector always calls for a recall. I join him today in calling for a recall of this government.
Good afternoon, caller. Welcome to Untarget.
Good afternoon again. Mr. Patrice Nisbet, it's interesting to listen to you speak this way. Is Douglas in charge in St. Kitts? Hello?
Yes, we're here. Listen.
No, I'm asking the question. Is this Douglas in charge in St. Kitts?
No.
Okay, good. So who they blaming? Because remember, Douglas was the problem for Nevis running in our kind of difficulties. But the slush fund, what Charles Wilkins said, and all of them was saying was the slush fund. The Nevis saying ain't the slush fund anymore. Who Douglas had was not given to Nevis. So they in. So what is going on in Nevis? What Nevis people be? Ray Charles? The Ray Charles know that they can't see? The ear block up so they can't hear? You, big man in power in St. Kitts, where all this lot of money be, they said Douglas wasn't giving it to Nevis. But what is the problem in Nevis today? Nevis people ain't supposed to be crying and saying things hard. That should not be happening in Nevis. Because they have their hand on all the money they said Douglas was not given to Nevis. Who do you think they're fooling? Patrice, Marius only could laugh here. Something wrong with people in this world. Something definitely wrong with us. If Douglas was in charge and they was in charge, okay. But now they take over. They got the slush fund, what Charles Wilkins say was a slush fund. They got all the money. The land for debt swap, as you said, they ain't touch it up until today. Have a good day, guys.
Thank you very much, caller. And we have reiterated those points. There was the talk of this $113.2 million made a very big headline, and everybody thought that was going to be the. There's a caller. Good afternoon, caller.
Mr. Courtier, good afternoon to you.
Yes, good afternoon.
Good afternoon to Patrice and Dr. Daly. Good afternoon, sir. Something came to my attention maybe about 2 minutes ago. As a result of watching NNC, I think there's a program that this and that moderator host goes something like Government at Work for You. Am I correct? Yes. And in his interview with the Premier of Nevis, he was asking him about the Governor General position as it relates to his authority and the federal government against, I believe, that of the Nevis Island Administration and the Constitution as it relates to the Deputy Governor. And he wanted to know the difference in that why, when the Governor General let's say, goes on duty elsewhere outside the Federation, or probably maybe on a vacation, the Deputy Governor of Nevis can act as Governor General and explain to him very wisely and nicely by the Constitution, know that cannot happen, and quite naturally so. But guess what? It shows us that the Constitution itself needs looking at this point in time. Because I'm almost certain, I heard this week, while the Prime Minister, Dr. Harris, was down in Grenada, the Premier of Nevis was acting Prime Minister. I mean, that's a lot of power. Not just acting Prime Minister, you know, but Minister of Finance. So could you imagine? The Premier of Nevis is the Premier of Nevis at that point in time, and Minister of Finance. And then he comes across, and then he comes across the infested waters as Prime Minister and Minister of Finance. That is very interesting, guys. Have a good day.
Thank you very much, caller. And as I was saying, that that $113 million is being spoken about. So the caller makes a very, very good point there, in that the question is, where has all of these monies gone? And it definitely hasn't benefited the Nevis economy. If, as the honourable gentleman Patrice Nisbet just described, we are at the brink of bankruptcy. So we now want to start the wrap up of this program, and because we have already run out of time, and so I would go over to Dr. Daly and begin with the wrap up from his end.
Well, Mr. Cozier, it's been an interesting afternoon. I think we had a very, as usual, a very comprehensive presentation on a number of issues. And of course, when you want to find out what's happening in this country, you try to follow the money. And I learned that the SIDF, through a grant facility, that is what I'm told. I don't know if it's true or not, whether it's a grant or a loan, but I'm assuming then it's a grant because it was put forward as a grant. They're the ones who financed or are planning to finance the pier to be built at Mosquito Bay for the sum of $5 million. Now, I find that a bit irresponsible, because we all recall that from the conversations that the gentleman from St. James would have made, the candidate for NRP, Mr. Virgil Brown, and other persons from the Observer, I think Monique Washington, when they inquired from the Ministry of Planning, there was no plan. There was no plan. There was no costing. There was no estimates. There were no drawings. And I'm wondering, on what basis then would the board that governs the SIDF would have granted the NIA $5 million? On what grounds? Sight unseen. Are you going to say, take this $5 million? A guesstimate. But even if it's a guesstimate, you come to the board, you come to a board that's being instituted, seated, to make sure that there are no abuses of the system, that you have proper accountability and transparency. And you come there, no plan. Just a guesstimate. Give me $5 million for PA in Mosquito Bay, and brap, the check is signed. Root up. This is how we do business? Is this how we do business? I keep telling people, this money here, it does not grow on trees. It probably is made from trees, but it doesn't grow on trees. And it's irresponsible, I find, that this government here, in collusion with the Unity Construct in St. Kitts, are just shoveling money out to Nevis to keep these guys afloat. And I've said it before, I said it again. This government in Nevis is using this money as a weapon. They're weaponizing the political discourse in this country. They're weaponizing it. They're using the treasury on Nevis like a weapon. Where they can win on the upfront, they buy on the back. And this is why we're getting this wanton spending left, right, and center. Nothing safe for a rainy day. No contingency fund. This overrun on the budget, $11.4 million overrun. They are using the resources of the treasury, the resources the people are thinking in Nevis as a weapon against the NRP and the opposition to buy what they can win on a good day. Thank you, Mr. Cozier. And I wish our listeners a safe and productive rest of the weekend.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Daly. And we will now turn to the Honorable E. Roberto Hector for his wrap-up.
Well, Mr. Cozier, as usual, it's always a pleasure to be here. I really thought we were going to have an abbreviated program.
Yeah.
Last week, it was the same time Dr. Daly and I, with an abbreviated program, came in again for 4 hours. And so I want to say a good afternoon to those and to let you know that we are dedicated to the recapturing, the restoration of democracy, honesty, and integrity in this little country called Nevis. So from my heart, once again, I say good afternoon, and do listen again to another On Target next week, same time, same place, with the same panelists.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hector. And Mr. Nisbet would say give his brief wrap-up as we move into the twilight. Obviously.
Yeah, Mr. Cozier, just to say that we were able to have a very comprehensive elucidation of the matters that are quite germane to the people of this country. And when I look down here, I see that we have had 7 months of the year so far, 17 murders, and a few unsolved. That is still the state of play here in St. Kitts and Nevis. And also, when one looks at the front page of the Observer newspaper, we realize that there's a comment here that this resort for St. Thomas's will be different to the Candy resort. Maybe it might not be as sweet as Candy. Maybe it will not provoke or invoke the court's jurisdiction. All maybe it will do, maybe those conflict and the abuse of office will not arise. Maybe you will not have situations where people go into long haul to drink fine wine and eat cheese and asking, do you want to purchase some lands? And maybe you will never have a situation where judges declare that the unusual has happened. And where you see this real estate transaction being fomenting, and people using the stationery belonging to the government to communicate with potential purchaser and the wife, I believe. I think the letter was CC to the wife, if my recollection serves me right. And so maybe we will not have those instances where there's clear lack of integrity in public life. And so one would hope that issues of malfeasance or misfeasance in public office will not arise in relation to this matter. And Mr. Kozia, when I read this newspaper, something struck me. Something struck me in an article in this newspaper, not your newspaper, Kozia, the St. Kitts Nevis Observer. And, you know, there was a lot of debate and discussion in this country about the SIDF. People used to refer it as a slush fund. And maybe you can help me. I want to know if anything is wrong here. Can I sit on a board, give Dr. Daly some money, and then Daly turns around and hire my company? Is anything wrong with that?
That's a finished touch.
And so I want you to look at the article on page 2 of the Observer newspaper, because I will have to do some legal research on the matter to see whether anything is wrong with what is happening there, because they have announced all the contractors who will be working on the expansion of the Alexandria Hospital. And when I look, and when I with a loan and a grant from SIDF, and we know who are the board members of the SIDF, because I saw a picture last week where one of them was in the cabinet doing a briefing to the federal cabinet. And so maybe we need to investigate who are the owners of these companies and whether persons who own these companies sit on the board of the SIDF. We would need to know. I think the people of Nevis need to know. Because if something is wrong there, we need to investigate. And maybe, Hector, you need to write another letter.
I'll send one to the Prime Minister.
You are the great letter writer. And so I believe another letter is forthcoming in relation to this issue. Because this raises the specter of the fund where people using offices to enrich themselves. And we know that that's not right. It's wrong. And so these are the things we are going to expose here on Target. Not that we have anything against these good gentlemen. We don't. Because I believe in their hearts of hearts, they meant good. But there are certain rules and there are certain guidelines that must be followed. You cannot use your public office in order to enrich yourselves. Those are basic principles and basic rules. And with that said, I say good afternoon to the general public here in St. Kitts and Nevis, and thank you for listening to On Target.
Thank you very much, Mr. Nisbet. And folks, we have come to the end of this program. We thank you for your calls. We thank you for listening to the program. And we want to invite you back next week, same time, same station, for another edition of On Target here. We say a very pleasant rest of the weekend to you. Good afternoon and God bless.
Your views, your opinion, your voice. Tune in to Choice Community Radio 105.3 FM on Saturdays at 1 p.m. for the talk show that tackles the major issues on target. Join former members of the Nevis Island Administration and St. Kitts Nevis Federal Government as they discuss and debate today's issues with the listening audience. Also expect special guests, panelists, and friends. Participate by calling phone lines 869-469-5300 or overseas phone line 203-983-8903. Listen live on www.sknclt.com. Be sure to tune in to Choice Community Radio 105.3 FM each and every Saturday at 1 p.m. It's On Target with the Honorable Dwight Cozier, the Honorable E. Roberto Hector, and the Honorable Patrice Nisbet.
The views and opinions expressed on the preceding program are not necessarily those of Choice FM, Community Radio, or its advertisers.